Cavecast, the uncensored show for nerds of all kinds.
I've been thinking about like what is the best way to start this conversation, and it's one of those that like when we did NF, where I was like, yeah, like we have like these planned things, like this is the person that we're going to talk about that commented and things like that. Like I don't have that with this, dude. Like this is just such an out of body experience I think that we have had since we have started reacting to this band, since this band has completely taken over our top 10 of, favorite things in music, I think in general. I think that's safe to say for both of us, not only because of the music, but the message, which I'm sure that we are going to get into tonight. But they're dropping new stuff here pretty soon, and we don't know when it's going to be. What are the dates that you've heard? Because I've gotten...
Tomorrow, the 13th.
Is it so tomorrow?
That's for sure. That's what I've heard. But then I heard it was a single.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's a single, if it's an album, if we're even getting anything. But I heard the 13th, and then I swear I heard like the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought maybe that was like NF. But yeah. So because he's supposed to drop, and so is Sleep Token. But again, I don't know if both of those are singles, albums, whatever. But I'm excited.
Yeah, this is like, it's like waiting for Christmas morning, and this has been the longest Christmas Eve. I mean, because I know that we're privileged because we got to come into the Sleep Token, fandom.
Like at the end, basically.
Yeah, kind of like when, I think like the last couple of singles off of Eden were released, and it was like, oh shit, now we have a full album to go through,
Basically, yes.
But to prep for this podcast, and I'm not sure exactly how it will go. I doubt that we will do each individual song, but we want to talk about their entire, collective of songs, man. Like Eric and I decided that we were going to listen to the entire discography from 1 all the way to Eden. And we took a day and decided that it was like, all right, cool. We're going to do this on, this particular day. We're going to get, high as fuck. We're going to listen to it. We're going to take notes.
Like 5 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Yeah.
Bro, it's wild. Like, because I think the playlist alone was about 3 hours and 45 minutes, but we were stopping, and it was almost kind of like a weird like type of like reaction in a way, but it was like a lot of reflecting and a lot of discovering, and because it was insane.
Yeah, we didn't want to like really discuss until today or like days, whenever, because like the more I kept thinking about it, I was like, we might have to break this up into at least maybe 2 episodes or something like that. But no, I was thinking the same thing. Like it almost had this like reaction to it, but I didn't want to discuss too much because I knew we were going to do the podcast or podcasts on this, and I didn't want to already pick each other's brain in a sense.
Yeah.
But I also was curious when we were writing, like, guys, like, I know you can't really see it and it's chicken scratch anyways, but like we got notes on like legit front to back lyrics, all of them right here. Yeah. Kyle took a fucking day and did this, but
I think the way I told you was I said that I had to beat an old lady with a stick, but I got all of them.
But, like highlighted stuff, guys, wrote things down, but it was also kind of one of those, we almost just went like, well, how did you take this? Or we almost kind of knew what parts of the songs that we were highlighting, I guess, and kind of writing about. And it was almost kind of 50-50 on both ways. I would say something, you'd go, oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, there was no definitive answers on anything, but it was a lot of bunny trails and a lot of fun.
So I think that's how to even start this, is to say, I even wrote it here, that this is going to be hard. This is like hard emotionally, but and then I was also thinking about this too, is that while you had a very good way of explaining how these albums, where it was like, the beginning and torture, and then acceptance, and then like all this stuff. But like,
yeah, it's almost like the 3 stages of grief,
correct?
Not including the EPs. So yeah.
But then there was also something that I kept realizing. There's just a cycle that doesn't end, regardless of what happens and how things are taken in each album. It doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter.
I will say this, and this is something that I didn't actually get a chance to tell you because I was kind of like in denial of myself, but we got done with this mega listen. Now, full transparency, guys, we have listened to Take Me Back to Eden probably more than any album, I think, in our lives.
Correct.
So it's one of those that we got to the end of Tomb and ended up going to Is It Really You, which was, the single between Tomb and Eden, and we kind of had this moment of like, dude, like we don't need to cross analyze these. We know these songs very, very well. We have the lyrics to look at them, to like, think about it, different things like that. And when we got done, I don't know if it was relevant to us listening to it, but dude, like I actually had like a headache of like,
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, like it like was on like the right side of my eye, and it was just this moment of like, oh my God, like the amount of information that we took in, and like the personal things that we were, thinking about, or the stuff that we were trying to dive deeper into, and then the listening to the music and being reminded of songs we haven't heard in a while. Like, dude, it was a lot. And the first thing that kept coming to my mind when we got done was, I'm like, this poor bastard.
Right.
Like, just, like this, like, oh my God. Like, I mean, having that moment at the end of Bloodsport and our reaction to it, when you hear him cry, and it's just, you understand that, like, whether this is fictional or not, this is real to him. This is real to Vessel.
Right.
And I think that that's what makes his, his music so incredible and makes it so relatable, because it's much like the NF thing, where it's like, dude, like, I didn't know somebody else felt this way, or somebody else has been through something like this, or, whether it's 10% or 100%, we've all experienced something that Vessel has. And, it was such an incredible experience. And if I don't think you'll mind me saying this, but I know like there were moments I saw, like, you get emotional.
Oh, of course.
Listening to things, and, trying to like to piece together this insanity that is all of their music, and whether or not it was just Vessel doing it, or if 2 was a part of it, or whatever. Like, no matter who was at the helm of it, they fucking nailed it with everything. And we've talked about this in our reactions a lot, where it's like, man, like when you go back and listen to old stuff, you would think it would be shit, but they've never missed.
Right.
They never have. We had a full listen for an entire day from top to bottom, just, not doing their deluxe versions because we wanted to do like the main meat of everything. But dude, it was just incredible. Like there's no experience that's similar to like what we did.
Agreed. And what's weird is I don't think I've ever, in my history of histories of listening to music, now I've never prepared for a podcast before like that, but sat down and done somebody's discography. I don't give a fuck if it's only 4 or 5 albums. Like, I've never done that.
Right.
Like, ever. And I have loved music since I was in single digits, and the fact that regardless of a podcast or not, this was something that I think was a very unique experience, regardless of what you were prepping it for, but because of the fact of, it was almost weird, and then weird that I'm like, why have I never done this before?
Right. Yeah.
Because nobody's been that good. Now that's not true. But that's not true. But like in that moment, that's how I felt. I was like, because nobody can do this other than them. So why wouldn't you? Now,
right.
That's a lie. But at the same time, it's just, I've never had somebody, I guess, captivate me so much in music and or lyrics or a cadence or something like that. I should not like Sleep Token.
Right.
At all. Like, Sleep Token has almost everything against it for me personally that I should like. And it was, even though we didn't quote dig it at first up until like the last part of the summoning, I was still like, this is like, something's here.
Yeah.
But like, all of those things, they didn't work for me, but then it did, and then it did, and then it did more, and then it did. So like, that's what I mean by like, I've never done anything like this. And with some of the greats that I've listened to, Michael Jackson's and Eminem's and things like that, I've never just sat down and taken an entire day to go, I want to analyze some lyrics.
Yeah.
They mean something.
I think that as far as what we have experienced in music, is that this is not to take credit away from Eminem or NF or Breaking Benjamin or Slipknot or
Absolutely.
Stone Sour. But dude, like, there's just something about Sleep Token that I think that when you listen to them and you genuinely want to know more, and whether or not you get deep into the lore like we have, and there's many things to discover with Vessel's discography, you know, and it's one of those where it's like one day we hope to be able to publicly do everything, but with what we're able to do and share with our audience, I'm careful, is that it's that thing of like, man, like we would be stupid, number one, to not do this for multiple reasons, you know, but also it's the fact that it's like, man, like I want to be able to talk through things. And I know that for me tonight is that, you know, it's like, look, man, we're going to try to, you know, keep it to this time of this, and this, but we're going to let this flow. And I think that probably the best way to go about it is probably just do like, you know, album by album, you know, like, you know, consider the EPs an album, you know, like do one, like do those one at a time and kind of just talk about like where we were when we were listening to everything, because we've had plenty of time to be able to take this stuff in, and we've had favorites, and there's been things that we've forgotten about, or maybe some things that were like a welcomed memory when it came back, where it's like, I remember when we were reacting to this. That's right. You know, Jaws was one of those that like when we threw it on, I'm like, that's right. Oh my God. Like just that
mine
beginning.
was, I think Nazareth.
Oh, really?
I think mine was Nazareth and Jericho.
Oh shit. Yeah. Yeah. Jericho.
I was like, oh yeah.
Dude,
like
two might be the best EP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But see, like I still find myself listening a lot to Eden.
Yeah.
I have songs that I like from almost every genre, every like album, if you will. But I think the most is on Eden. But let's go ahead and start. So like, so again, how do you want to start this? Like, is it just, do you want to just start with notes, or are we just starting with what we think this is about personally? Like,
well, I think that kind of like doing an overview of it, because I tried my best and I kind of fell off of it when we were going through, just because I was so locked in. But what I tried to do was, after I did my notes on every song, was that I basically kind of like made like a title of, you know, like this is kind of like what the song is, in my opinion. Like this is, you know, this, and this, or like, you know, we've made it to this point, which with one, the EP that started everything, we have Thread the Needle. And this song to me is very much like the like birth moment that we see that Vessel is like, no, come to me. You know, like I'm inviting you in. I'm accepting this dream. You know, it's because the way that he says, "Bury me inside this labyrinth bed. We can feel that time is dilated." Like, it's like that idea of labyrinth, that idea of, you know, this is a place to get lost in, where it's like, man, like he could have not gone, but he did, and it makes me wonder with him accepting the dream. And again, we can go out there with this. Like, this is like it's very difficult to stay grounded, but it's one of those that I've thought to myself many times, and I mean this is no disrespect to Vessel, like to be like, oh, if he really had a real experience, but it's like, you know, either one, he really did have a dream where he met this entity Sleep, or he was experimenting with, you know, some kind of mind expanding chemicals, or you know, like a coma, like we've talked about that with like the possibility of this all being about it, also like coming in with like a car crash and like him, you know, being in such a deep state. I mean, there's so many ways that he could have been forced into it, accepted it, or whatever. But regardless, bury me inside this labyrinth bed. That is one of the craziest ways that you can start your entire discography. Like, dude, it's so intense. And it's like, damn, like, how big is this maze? How big is this labyrinth? You know, it's so cool.
So I actually had some things wrote down too on this, but like, so Thread the Needle, and you were saying in the fact of like being in this maze and like wanting to lay down, and why would you do that? But like, we talked about this, what threading a needle is hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So Thread the Needle, I'm taking the fact of you get it right every time. So I'm okay with being in this. I actually welcome it because you get it right. It's worth the maze.
We can spend the night in fascination. You can thread the needle time and time again.
Correct.
Right.
So I wrote down here, starting lost, but okay with it. You're starting out completely lost. But I actually had over here, remember when I was saying something about this, and I don't know how to explain it in a sense of just certain things. It's not always just words, but I wonder if sleep doesn't mean sleep, where sleep could equal like good memories and times, or like daydreaming.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Different state of consciousness that's not awake.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then Eden equaling like just like real life and or a real girl. So that's the Eden is the real side of the things. So when you hear "Take me back to Eden," take me back to real life.
Yeah, I'm done
being here.
Right.
But just in the fact of, yes, you're right. The way you start your discography is fucking wild.
Yeah.
Because honestly, had we heard that first compared to the summoning, maybe not even just a good or bad way, but like, could you imagine hearing lyrics like that immediately?
Well, it's
over, dude. I'm invested.
Well, because I think the problem with the summoning, and I think that, some people could agree with this, disagree, whichever, but I think that when you're introducing people to Sleep Token, that Take Me Back to Eden is one of the best ways to do it. Whereas like the summoning is that you make an assumption about them for the first 3/4 of the song. Where you're kind of like, all right, this is low genty stuff. And it's not bad, but it's like some people immediately turn their brain off. And it's like only those that give it enough time for you to be able to make it to the end to get that blues breakdown. And you're like, wait a minute. This is not what I thought I was going to get.
Right.
And with one, it's very interesting that like we kind of get like a very interesting summoning kind of view of things, but it is more melodic. I mean, 'cause we definitely go into like the low genting and that kind of thing happens. But what's funny is that like with these songs, especially off of one, and I don't know if anybody else has felt this way, but they're not so much songs for me as much as they are experiences. And it's not like Ronnie's experience where it's like, this is like every time I listen to Thread the Needle, Calcutta, like there's just something about like, no, everything else in my life stops because I don't come back to one that often. But when I do, I never regret it, and starting with this is just like that. It's like, damn, like this is sleep that good. Like this entity is like this.
Yes.
It makes sense as to why this cycle that you guys are going to see is going to continue to happen.
Always, no matter where you're at with the acceptance or believing or whatever. But yeah. And the fact that it even goes down to say you can thread the needle time and time again. So I'm saying you get it right every time.
Yeah.
So you're already announcing from the first 2 breaths of your album 2 things. I'm going to be here forever. So you already know in your mind this is probably going to be an endless loop and cycle.
Yeah.
You're never getting out, man. It's too good.
Yeah.
It's too good. So the bad is going to always outweigh the good, but you're okay with it.
Because you think bad is normal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because what we've said before is that we've talked about it with several people that, guys, to us, Sleep Token is for people. Now, it's not just this, but if you've been in a narcissistic relationship, whether you're male or female, I don't mean to just take sides, but I think maybe more as a guy, you take this a little harder.
100%.
With Sleep Token.
One, I think it's only because of the fact that it's like, it's kind of like the Sam Kinison thing where it's like, why don't you ever, bitch about men? You only bitch about women. And it's like, well, no, there's a reason because a man never broke my fucking heart. So it's like,
correct.
That's the perspective that Vessel has, so it's like, it's one of those where like having certain moments of things. And I'm sure like whether it's in one episode or the next or whichever, I'm sure we'll get to very personal moments for the both of us, but it's nuts, man. Like it's crazy to hear it and know that it's like, man, like, if a woman can, relate to this, how much more can a man relate to this? Like, I mean, Sleep Token really is for everybody.
It is.
But the thing is that there's undeniable things I think that make us gravitate towards this, very, very much. And it's like, it's kind of weirdly enough our binky, in a way, like, although it's very painful in some areas, but it's also just incredible all around. And as far as Thread the Needle, to kind of like wrap it up on that, is that what I thought was interesting is that actually has a longer instrumental ending. And it kind of is, it's almost kind of like we're setting the tone. We're getting you into, the mentality and the space and the feeling that you're going to be in for the next 3 hours and 45 minutes if you listen to everything, where it's like be ready, take notes, and this is how it's going to be, so.
Well, and because we noticed that too, as I remember being very worried on a number of these because we would have this, hell, even 3 or 4 minute video and have that many lyrics.
Yeah, it's so minute.
And you're like, how is this going to work? but it does.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem. And the thing that is always cool about Sleep Token is that you almost never know when you see something like that, because it's almost like a cheat sheet, because you know, like, okay, well, there's not a lot of lyrics. Where is all this music going to come into where there's no vocals?
Yeah.
Because it's not just at the beginning. They don't just have big intros. They have big intros, they have big middles, and they have big ends. Like, honestly, like you could get it in any section of any song like that. So it's not like, okay, well, this is going to be a full minute intro. No. It might be a 20-second intro and a fucking 40-second outro.
Well, especially like when you kick into something like Gods, where it's like that's a snare drum and then you're right into screaming. Like, so I mean, like, it's just I think I like what I like about one is that it really does allow you to take your time, and it allows you to get into a mindset. And I mean, especially for, you know, the main crux of everything, which is worship. You know, it's this thing that, you know, has been said, you know, I think in many different situations where it's like, no, to sleep we worship, but also worship is a mentality, worship is a culture, worship is like, you know, understanding that you're not alone. You know, and as somebody who has a Christian background, that was something that kind of freaked me out for a while, where I'm like, I'm not worshiping no other God here, man. Like, that's not happening, you know. But when you understand, and you understand like the theatrics of it, like, especially with Fields of Elation, like, this is really, I think, besides like Sugar, which I made a note about, it was that this is almost kind of like Sugar Part 1.
I remember you talking about that.
It's it's that idea of, you know, I mean, there's plenty of lyrics, but it's the idea of where he says, your name is a sin I breathe, like oxygen, caught in careless arms of lust again. Like, this is the moment that Vessel is now, he's in this labyrinth, he's in this dream world, and you are just, he's just locked in because it feels so fucking good.
Well, he even ends that sentence with, nobody else can pull me out. And I made 2 different notes on that. So again, we pretty much the same lyrics in a sense, but someone else can pull him out. He just refuses to see it.
Yeah, and he knows this is bad.
Right. I know you're bad for me, but like I said, lust trumps logic.
Yep.
Because you completely fucking, your brain just does not, it refuses to see what's in front of it.
Yeah.
So I think that this is where, before we knew everything in backstory of you know, Sleep Token and all this stuff that we were going through because of Eden being first, not that you couldn't realize about like the terrible relationship and the back and forth, but like this right here already sets the tone even more for that. Like, dude, this is gonna fucking blow.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that. But it's almost like from here on out, you just know, oh, dude, this is not going to be good for this guy.
Yeah. It's that thing where it's like, well, I think Titus said it, where he said, my family talked sense to me because they were the only ones that weren't blinded by pussy. You know, it's like that type of thing where like, and I know that's very derogatory and that's very intense, but it's like, no, like, but the thing is that's unfortunately a real thing, a trap that men and women do fall into. And it's something that it's like,
dudes be sweet dicking girls.
Well, right. But I think it's also the fact too, where it's like Fields of Elation. Like, remember all of this is that this is supposed to be worship to sleep. And it's kind of interesting how it's like these songs go from being authentic, you know, but it's like where it's like, okay, I know this is kind of bad for me, but oh my God, this is amazing, to the worship kind of changes as we start going on to where we're like, oh my God, no, this is rough. Like, so even the worship music is corrupt. It's very interesting when you think of it like that, where it's like, why would worshiping a narcissistic deity have pure worship? It wouldn't, you know? So it's like, that's kind of how I've been like viewing this.
What if sleep is also, I just saw this too, like, okay, kind of playing off what you were saying is that like, what if sleep is like still that concept of maybe the good and bad, if you will, like you were just saying, like how that worship goes, but it's like when you're in that sleep realm, you can control your dreams.
Yeah.
But some like fucked up shit stuff, because it's subconsciously, you know, it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, that just like hit me. Like, so what if there is that part? And then I remember we also talked, I brought this up, guys, I don't know if you want to say in the comments or not, but I said something to Kyle. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. What if all of the good and all of the bad happened at once instead of how, how it's sprinkled throughout the entire albums and almost like that cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if it went in the sense of all of the good happened, but then all of the bad, that was all the ending, but it's all kind of because of the loop, if you will.
It's an idea that the beginning was good, the ending was good, the now is good, but the past of like in the middle of those two is like, it's the thing that you don't think about because it's like, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. We didn't fight yesterday. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Like,
like, I wonder if there is maybe some of that like concept behind it to where it's not a quote storyline like how we're hearing it like that. It was one thing and then now you're just seeing it from a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the tough thing too, is that there's no way to know whether or not the story is truly chronological. And
right.
I would argue that I think that the albums are chronological, but the songs themselves can be inspired to be anything that they want to be.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. But it's, I mean, but Fields of Elation, I mean, with this one, I mean, it's Fields of Elation is truly the time that, in my opinion, not to say that these statements that we make are, factually true, because who knows what Vessel really thinks about these because he's the one that wrote it. But he saw the red flags in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the fact of that. It's like, no, while he was deep in this situation and getting all the good, he's seeing all the bad. And it's kind of like, no, that's fine. That's okay. Like, Fields of Elation, in my opinion, really is the moment that it's like, you have this, like these blinders that are on that affect you completely. And not only does it affect you, personally, but then like it makes you distant from everybody. It affects your life. And we're going to see that very much as we go through the rest of the discography as well. But when we go to When the Bough Breaks, this is one that I find that I found that when we were doing this, the full listen through, was that there were times that we had to stop and we were like, wait, like, is this Sleep or is this Vessel? And that was something that I thought was very interesting to go back and listen to these things since we talked about it, where it's like, oh my God, like, no, this is Sleep responding or making her or his statement. Because when you even look at Christian worship, there's plenty of worship songs where it's like the word of God, but it's literally what God spoke, but it's in a praising manner. Right. So it makes sense that Vessel would go about it this way. So with When the Bough Breaks, like I can't remember what your notes were. What did you have for this guy,
bro? It's like the first 3/4 of it. I think it's Sleep talking to Vessel.
Same, yeah,
because it kind of like once everything we touch turns water to blood, I think I believe when he starts talking,
I've got that note too, yeah,
back to Sleep.
That's his moment of saying like, I see what's happening.
Yeah, it's one of those like it fights all the time, like one of those like we fight all the time and you just run when it's hard. Mm-hmm. You don't stick around. And so I think that through a lot of this, well, not a lot, but I think that there's enough songs in here that when you almost hear them for the first time or even 10 times, if you're not maybe paying attention, maybe we are looking too much into it, guys, but sure. I think there's plenty of times that Sleep is talking to him. They're talking back and forth. Mm-hmm. I think that there is a few times that Vessel was just talking to himself as well. But it makes sense. But if you're wrestling with something like this, you're going to have this like conversation almost 100%. With yourself,
Yeah. And that's one. We're also looking at the situation with somebody that's going through a narcissistic relationship that that, as far as we can tell, is not relying on a substance.
Yeah.
So it's like then you have like, that kind of aspect in it too, is that if somebody's dealing with that, then of course, man, like they're going to self-reflect, either that or they're just going to be so numb they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Because when he says, I think it's him talking here, you try to look away even when the bough breaks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You won't stay here. So I think that's when it's flipped and he's sitting there talking back like, Sleep has been talking to him through that whole course. Mm-hmm. And he's just supposed like almost sit there and take it in a sense.
Yeah.
But then when he says something, see, that's the thing too, is I feel like sometimes when he responds, that's when they fight.
Yeah.
You're just supposed to stay quiet, man.
Yeah. And so you do your job, you sit back. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, especially because the moments that there's the chanting or the repetition of "Don't lie to me" was that what I basically the note that I got from that and like how I was feeling with it was follow my rules, the double standard of like it's like I can lie to you and fuck with you all you want, but you don't lie to me.
Yeah,
you know, it's like that type of thing, and we've both been in that situation and had like had that moment of feeling completely helpless, and I think that that's when. What's interesting is that when the bow breaks, and we'll get into this when we get into Eden, is that it's like no, like he says it in Euclid where he's like, no, the bow is broken through. It's like it's kind of that moment of like, no, all my plates fell, everything that was spinning, it's like those plates fell, but right now he's spinning his plates, and he's got so many of them, dude, and it's heartbreaking.
Well, look at how this even ends. And ends the EP because I put ends the EP knowing that she's bad for him, but like you don't really love, you just hate to be alone. You hate to be alone. So I put here, you only want me when you are alone or out of options for the time being.
Yeah.
You don't really want to be here. Like I'm your plaything. You've got 3 or 4 other suitors, if you will, over here, but when they're busy, that's when you want me in a sense. Because guys, I don't know. There is a part of me, I guess this kind of gives a future reference on things, but like I think there's a part of me that somebody cheated. And I think it was her.
Well, it's especially with like when you get into like missing limbs, and like we'll get into that later because there's even some reminiscent of missing. Actually, when we start in Calcutta, there's some references. In my opinion, I think that connect to missing limbs, but he says it right in that song where he's like, yeah, and it makes me hold on, I can actually just look at it, but because I want to make sure I get it right. But it's how he says what you mean to him or what you are to him, and that's something that to me where I was like, wait a second, I'm like, this is the first time we've ever heard like a gender come out
correct
in that way. But it's let's see. And it still makes my blood run thin to remember what you are to him. And I live like I've got missing limbs for you. And it's that moment of like, what the fuck, dude? Like, it's like now there's something else to keep track of in this. Like, realistically in this day and age, I mean, either of them could have cheated on each other with a male, but in the same hand, but it's like, but to take it that stereotypical way of being like, nah, man, it probably was her. Because if she's already a narcissist,
correct,
then why would we think that she wouldn't? So it's like that type of thing.
Because it's almost like in the fact of, when you obviously when you're with a narcissist, they gaslight you. So when somebody's cheating or when somebody's doing things they shouldn't be, they know how to get around the things. And then now they're the victim no matter what.
Yeah.
So I don't think that necessarily everything is about this, but I think that part of the maybe even trying to get past and or heal and all this stuff, I think there's a part that somebody cheated, maybe even somebody is dead.
Well, especially getting into 2, there is some pretty blatant things that if it's not what we have suspected that it is, this is the one thing that I want like an explanation on is when we eventually get to Nazareth, because that's the moment that I think that everything takes a very hard left turn to where like it's the first time we hear him say fuck. It's it's the first time that violence is talked about, like but which we'll get there. But with 2, with Calcutta, like this, and again, this like keeping that mentality in mind of if one of them cheated, that's something that like as we've gone through like these different things where I'm like, all right, no, I've been looking for it, to see when it pops up, and it's like sometimes that light bulb thing can happen, where you're like, oh, like okay, I never noticed this before, this or this, but I know there was a lyric that we listened to, and I was like, "No, man, if you have any argument for somebody cheating, it's this one."
Yeah,
that type of thing, But Calcutta, like we come off of one, and it's basically like, no, she's like, "You're mine. I've trapped you. Like I've got you. Like it's it's already too late. You've realized it, but you're stuck." And that's essentially how the song begins: "Is I'm caught, tangled and wrapped and quartered," and there's something about like when an artist says a description like that where they're like, oh, I'm tangled up in me or like this and this or whatever. Like, no, man, to be wrapped and quartered, like you ain't moving. you do not have wiggle room. You do not have the ability to run. You do not have the ability to crawl. You have the ability to writhe and scream. And that's something that I think that is very ironic. And we say this about 21 Pilots, but Calcutta is a very uplifting sounding song. And this is how we started. It's that yin and yang, man. Like, it's just that fact of like, damn, like buddy, like, are you okay? Like, it's like, no, like you don't gotta be like tied up. You ain't gotta be, this and this, so.
But see, I actually took it in a different way in the fact of when you go down, like tripping up over and time living again for just a moment, missing pieces find me. Mm-hmm. I ache for your eyes and the way you breathe and stuff. I found that in the fact of that sleep is his piece and where he can make it work. Mm-hmm. The missing pieces are finding me. Yeah. Just because, like you said, just because you're tangled doesn't mean it is a bad thing. Mm. But I get what you're saying. That's why, dude, this is so hard to.
We can't pinpoint anything.
You can't.
This is only like what we can think of with our high minds. Like, it's so
correct. and like, but it's like, how many different meanings are there in? Because I almost feel like Vessel is like the Da Vinci of lyrics. Yeah. It's almost like his life goal to make this a puzzle and to sit back. And I swear to fuck, man, this motherfucker just sits back with his band members and going, these guys get it. These guys don't understand, nerds. Like, I swear to God, they watch reaction videos and go, idiot. Right. But because, like, in a funny way, but I really think because the time and effort and everything that are put into these lyrics and sounds and background noises and things, there is no way that this isn't thought through so thoroughly.
There's no mistakes. There's nothing is thrown in as filler. There's no lyrics that are just like, oh, like, this is misconstrued. Like, no, I have no doubt that Vessel knows exactly where every piece is.
Correct.
100%.
The only thing that I stated before is like, watch it be absolutely dick nothing, and he just fucking like Houdini'd all of us.
He made it all up as he went along.
All of it as he went. Like
first draft.
Yeah. Could you imagine?
I'd be fucking pissed. I'd be like, get out. I don't ever want to see you again.
Yeah. Oh man. But okay. All right, get off that topic. But okay.
But no, I mean, as far as like Calcutta, like, I mean, this is. The notes I kind of had here was, as far as, longing for her, like the whole I swayed, I ache for you, the eyes and the way you breathe. I think you mentioned that. And I wake, say your name. And that's such a beautiful part of it because it really, like, this is kind of when we get into the Hillsong worship kind of sound, almost like Levitate off of Sundowning, where it's like, and I wake, like, it's got that long drawn out kind of thing. And it's interesting that the worship now, in my opinion, with Calcutta is she's gone. He's longing for her. Like, it's like either that or it's like him coming out of a dream and it's upsetting, but yet the lyrics are, are the opposite. But
I agree. Because I put down here where he says, I am whole again for just a moment till morning comes. He doesn't want to wake up. Yeah. Yeah. So I agree, dude.
Yes, and I think that it all stems back to that fact of like, nah, man, sleeping sometimes is so much better. Where it's like even like the Brendan Fraser thing, where he's like, he's like sometimes the best part of the day is lunch. Like when you're on set, where it's like, no, lunch is the best part of the day. Like that type of thing. But it's interesting to see. See later on when it's like he says she said you better believe it, I said you don't know, almost like have faith. Yeah, no shit. It's like you're not telling me anything I haven't already heard. Like, and it's just again like the whole missing pieces find me. I kind of found that to be, if it does connect to missing limbs, I almost thought about like this is almost kind of like his last chance to hang on to those pieces of himself that he has, like. Because even when we get into Fall for Me, where he's like, I'm losing touch with what I am again, and it's that moment of like, oh my God, like, is there more for like more things that are going to happen that he's going to lose more? Where it's like, no, now I have missing limbs because all my missing pieces are gone. Now that's only a word association thing.
I get you.
But in the same hand is that it makes me wonder where I'm like, is it? I'm like, is that what that means? But. It's also like, I mean, it would be nice to think that would be the case just because it'd be cool to think that all the way back in EP2 that he was planning on Tomb, like that type of thing. But then again, we don't know how it all went down. But,
right.
But no, this one is just, it's this one I kind of just like summed it up to like, no, sleep is making sure that he's still trapped. Calcutta is the idea of like checking the lock and being like, yep, we're good. You're not going anywhere. And that's something I think that narcissists that they do is that they want to test the waters to know whether or not like, oh, can I sleep well tonight? Because I know for a fact that they're not going anywhere. You know,
Sure.
It's either that or it's like kind of like the menu thing where it's like you could have escaped, but you didn't. You know, or like it's like that like taunting thing, you know.
Correct. See,
but
you're the one still here.
yeah, it's like you chose to be here. Now this is your fault because of the things I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, man.
Yeah. So I mean, Calcutta. I mean, it's a great song. I mean, again, all these songs that this band does, like they're just each one is its own unique thing, and especially, my God, when we get to Nazareth, this is really where I think that when we were talking about this, I think where we spent quite a bit of our time. I wouldn't say it's where we spent the most of our time, but we spent a significant amount of time talking about Nazareth because this one is, again, we're echoing the same things where it's like he's a slave, he's trapped. Like, you know, he's making it very clear, like we have not been triumphant in that way. But the hard thing is that when you're a slave, you do what you're told. And that's I think that's really what Nazareth is really about, is the detrimental just side effects of being with a narcissist where they can literally make you do anything that they want.
See, and it's weird to sit there and think on how he even starts this. And I'll see you when the wrath comes. It is immediate. See, he knows. You step on eggshells every day. Every single day when you're with somebody like that. Are they gonna what person are we getting this morning when they wake up?
Yeah.
And I think this first verse right here is Vessel saying what he's done for her.
Yeah. Yeah, haven't I done enough? It's like the Abraham thing of have I not shown you enough faith?
But I'll see you when the wrath comes, like, because I'm still gonna be here. I'm gonna be here, but it's almost like he will sit there in the eye of the storm to try to plead his point. Because you think maybe while you're fighting that they might be vulnerable too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then because you have to play their game now.
So
yeah.
It's the thing is that I always remember thinking and being in a fight when I was fighting with a narcissist is that's what I thought. There was some way, somehow I was going to trip them up.
Yeah.
To be like, how can you really compare that? How can you do that?
Yeah.
You don't hear what you're saying, but they don't.
Well, it's that whole thing of that. It's like when you bring up a situation that you know for a fact is relatable and they give you the whole apples and oranges bullshit.
Correct.
It's like, no, like that's an easy thing you can say that makes you sound smart.
Correct.
You know, yeah, that's that type of thing.
And so that's why I said, like, I feel like that the beginning, but it's just interesting how even Nazareth starts. There's quite a few of these songs that you're like, bro, that's how you opened your mouth to this song?
Yeah.
But I get it. I've been that way of like thinking or whatever, where it's like, this is how I started my day. Because like it was, you knew this is what was going to happen, or you knew to prepare for it. You had to suit up every day in armor almost. And for your emotions, your sanity, everything, because you didn't know. You really didn't know, but there was always a kink in your armor, dude.
Oh, 100%.
And they always knew where it was. It was like they built the armor for you.
See, in this, I think that's the thing, is that it's something that, and I don't know, like, you know, what your conversations with your significant other look like, you know, when different things like this come up, but like, it's one of those that, like, you know, having that trust and knowing that it's like, no, like, I'm not going to be hurt again, you know, like, it's like that.
It'll never go away.
Well, but I think the thing is that there's like such a beautiful part of me now that it's like, man, like I don't have that worry anymore. But I think that what it does to me is that I remember what it's like to be there, and my issue more so comes from I'm gonna wake up and this is all a dream. or like I'm going to wake
Right.
up and still, you know, be in the basement the way I was 5 years ago. I'm going to wake up and like, you know, it's like, where
This
it's
room isn't real. This is not,
YouTube never happened.
Yep.
It's like
I thought that too.
Well, I do. And it's weird because it's only on the days that I'm consciously thinking about how great my life is, you know? So it's that whole thing of like, you know, we're like, oh, like, you know, it's like, I'm not depressed. Well, something's wrong. It's because it's all going to go away. It's like, you know, well, tomorrow came and it didn't go away. Okay, well, maybe soon it'll go away. You know, it's like that type of thing. Because it's like, it's messed up because like when you're in those situations is that like you aren't yourself. And it's very much like how Jim Carrey said it, where it's like, he's like or depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to play this character anymore. And the tough thing of being in that, like, dude, like I have so much of my life that I don't remember.
Of course.
And I think that it's partially, I think it's because of number one, the booze at the time. You know, I think that had a lot to do with it.
That has some effect, of course.
But I would also like say that it was just because my brain was just was so shot where it's like I couldn't fight back, dude. I was chemically fucking numb in every way.
Yeah.
You know, I was not producing enough dopamine. I was not I was just every single gland I had to give me anything good was just fucking dry. And Nazareth is just this moment of, in my opinion, I think it's the fact of him standing up because when he says, dripping from the open mouth, I'll show you what you look like from the inside and I'll see you when the wrath comes. Almost like the idea of like, I think the two thoughts I had was either he's legit biting her or is using that symbolism of bite to hurt or harm or kill. You know, because that's something we see very much throughout the rest of the music is, you know, take a bite, you know, teeth of diamonds and
teeth,
like different things like that. So it's almost kind of him threatening violence over the way he feels. And then the next thing she says, let's load the gun. It's that idea of like, no, it's like, you know what? No, since you just talked back, now you got to go do this. And if you don't, I'm going to be very fucking upset. And now your life is ruined. And that's how we get to the whole tough lyrics we're going to get into. But what do you think about that? Like, as far as like her responding, like, or if that's even where she comes in?
I think that with something like this is that because I had on the last page is that some things just to kind of, is this all a coma? Is sleep a real woman? Was this a car wreck while they were fighting?
Right. Kind of like Smile too. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe she left and Vessel was out drinking and had a car accident or something like. So the reason I was saying all those real quick is because I think there's a part of me, that some of this, when we're talking about this whole Nazareth thing, it's almost like Sleep wants him to kill Eden.
Yeah.
So is Sleep the mistress in real life? And then and I don't mean actually really kill a real person, but I almost feel like with the stuff like let's load the gun, things like that, let's fuck her up. It's almost like it was his subconscious going, go do it, go do what you need to do if you want to do this. Or even if it's not, and the fact of really kind of like, quote, killing the person, like this was all a premeditated situation in his mind.
Sure. Yeah.
To sit there and be like, can I really go through with this? So
this is what it's going to take. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And because I think that with all of that innuendo of like stuffing the tape in her mouth and fuck her up and stuff.
See that right there, like that's honestly, I think one of the hardest lines that he's written. Like, you know, who again, like much like, you know, dangling like cold cuts, where it's like, see if she can guess what a hollow point does to a naked body. Where it's like, like number one, I like when you hear that is that's something that should be in a rap song.
Sure.
You know, but not as poetic and beautiful as Vessel would write it. But it's like, that's like a hardcore rap lyric that would get people upset and think that like, you know, Columbine was started. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that type of thing. Like but you think about that, like how damaging is a hollow point? How damaged can you be if you are naked to a bullet? Like, it's like, there's so much about this song that is so uncomfortable. And it's even like with the processing of music as we get to the end of like, you know, where we do get that big release of guitars, but also it's kind of that I won't be missing you, where it's like you're just kind of like percolating and we're just staying here until we finally drop, you know. And for me, I think that with the way that you're viewing it, like very much where it's like the mistress thing and everything, is that I think that it's very possible. it's just very difficult for me to not envision sleep as an entity that's fucking
Sure.
with his life.
I was
You
just
know,
saying like that.
but,
That is one
yeah.
angle that I thought only because he kind of follows up with manifest pain at the core of pleasure.
Right.
So like it's not really you're trying to get it out there in a sense. So like that's almost another reason why I thought maybe this could be almost like a mistress situation.
Sure. Yeah.
To where this is all a figure of speech on like the gun and stuff, but like loading the gun, like rip the Band-Aid off, leave her, do all this. So like that was just, like I said, a small portion of that. But either way, I think that some of these angles with how that was going and stuff makes sense. It does make sense. But again, guys, this is where Kyle and I were taking notes and still kind of bouncing off of each other. Would be like, and that's when he was like, "Oh, why didn't really think of it that way?"
Yeah.
So we both have different yet same views on these lyrics and albums and things that we listen to.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
Well, it's everybody's interpretation is going to be different. I think that it's much like how bands have said it in the past, and Slipknot and everything else, where it's like, nah, man, like we have a message that we want to write, but ultimately we let our fans decide on what the songs mean. It allows you to have that, but I don't know, like it's just not Jericho. Nazareth is just one of those songs where it's like I kind of don't get tired of it, but then there's also that part of me that when I listen to it, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because it is such a tough song, like in so many different ways, and it's interesting that that's the second part of 2. It's of EP. The second EP is that it's like, okay, like we kind of had like our climactic moment of like, oh my God, did he do it? Like, did he kill her, or did he get rid of this woman out of his life, or whichever? And we come to Jericho, and
again, how do you start? How do you? Because that's what my note from here at the beginning went from, in a sense, or not just kill, but like went from like kill her to basically like kind of treading these light waters, and with the tread the ancient water, like I sink down like a precious stone. I even put like, yeah, you're sinking, but you think you're this beautiful diamond, precious stone, while you're sinking to the fucking bottom.
Yep.
Not realizing how far away the top of the water is.
Yeah. It's right where she wants him to be.
Because it's calm. It's calm. You're treading light waters. You were just in a tsunami. A fucking tsunami of things. And now it's because that's how it fucking goes, dude.
Yeah.
You'll go from you are the most despicable, not a man, most unreliable human being piece of shit to let me suck your dick. In a fucking moment, dude.
Yeah.
So now you think everything's okay.
Right.
Now, guys, that was but like that is
that's
a real thing.
That is a drastic thing, but the thing is that I think that everybody has had their own view of that, or that their own experiences, and especially like, with something that's not intimate, like when you have parents that are fucking destructive, when you have siblings, fucking friends, teachers, like all that stuff, like there's something really fucked up about somebody that can flip on a dime when they've done something terrible to you, and it's that thing of just like I remember certain moments in situations I was in, because again, I'm going to be vague just because, the second I say anything is when it'll be an issue, but it's that thing of like, man, like hearing somebody get short with me, in that moment of being like, where it's like you see like ugliness come out for a second and then like it goes back in and you're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
That wasn't normal. I'm irritated. I'm tired, or I'm upset. I need you. That was the like, I am lashing out at you, and it was loud. But now it's done. It's kind of like, okay, so is that just like to be like, don't ever do that again? Like that type of thing. Like there's so much about just being trapped in that. And that's, again, like you guys are going to hear us talk about this because it's this cycle, and Jericho is a full proving of that. He's brainwashed. Like he's trying to keep it together. Like he's sinking and happy, like you were saying. But the problem is that he's worshiping a Jezebel. Like he's stuck in this. Like it's one of those that like, for all the while, like when I think about this, is that it makes me feel like it's like an urban legend, or like it's like, another like paranormal thing where it's like, nah, man, if you would have just left it alone, you never would have been in this situation. If you never would have investigated her, or if you never would have, done this and this, or never paid attention when she showed up, like it's that thing of like, dude, like, why are you still chasing after this deity that doesn't give a fuck about you?
Yeah.
But it's like, but you taste like new flesh. You taste better. You taste
See,
amazing. And that's the tough part of this song is that he's being entranced again.
See, and that's where I almost took it to where this is where things flipped around for me a little bit too. Then I thought, well, maybe it still was something else in the fact of, then he says, until I wake, I dine on old encounters. So, but then he says, that's not where it ends, but I think sleep is where he lives in the past. To a point, or like maybe some of these scenarios that he can get in, because then he says, until you taste like new flesh. Waking up to a new you does not always mean a good thing.
No.
I think maybe you taste like new flesh, and then say my name again. Fold secrets. So I think it's because she tastes different. She's been somewhere else.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You've been somewhere else. Where the fuck? We just had a fight.
It's what was that line from Kenny Wayne Shepherd where it says someone's been sneaking in and out of the window because this room don't smell like you and me, like that type of thing. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it's just that was a theory that I had on that. Guys, you're gonna realize something. Look, man, I'm jaded as fuck. I was telling Kyle that this is a lot of this is very negative for me, and not that I am not naive in the think that Vessel wrote these about my life or directly for me.
Well, no,
but I really feel like people like us and Vessel very much relate to like, this is my story. It isn't, but it is your story.
It's as close as some guy from the UK can make it.
Correct.
I mean, seriously, like it's one of those that like I find myself that like it's not so much out of therapy much anymore when I listen to them. Like that, I have my days and have my times, but it's also a different type of therapy now. I'm not trying to feel better. It's I feel better, but I'm reminding myself of what I don't have anymore. Like the problems I don't have, and like that's having perspective is such a big deal, because think about just even where we are with just like with these EPs right now, where it's like we know for a fact that he has done some pretty heinous shit, whether it is an actual killing or if it's a get out of my life. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to be with you anymore. Like that type of thing. Like there's been some terrible shit that this guy has done at the hands of somebody that is so fucking terrible.
Of course.
And the cycle has repeated almost 2 or 3 times already. We're not even into the first album. Sundowning has not even been thought of yet. We haven't even gotten into the fucking singles and shit. Like that's insane. And that's one of the reasons why
I think it's so relatable.
What's so relatable would do, like I was exhausted where there was a part of me where I was like, dude, I'm like, I don't know if I want to listen to Sleep Token tonight. Like I don't mean it like as a bad thing, like not that they're terrible, but it was just that moment of like, oh my God, like once you understand what this is, where it's like, God, like, again, this poor bastard, like it's like if you would just get out, like buddy, like you don't have to be here. And then you're like, but we've got 3 albums. Yeah, we have 3 albums to go through that include. Except what was it? Oh, because what they say is that Sundowning is the realization. Sundowning is the realization. Tomb is suffering, and Eden is acceptance. Right,
but and again, cycles still keep going through everything, and that's why I said I think that's the point of this is that the realizing that either I know that this sounds like a cliche, shitty thing to say, but like you either just always do the cycle or you finally do get out. But you've done this for so many times, no matter what emotion you've been in. Yeah. You're still cycling, but I think he also follows that up with swallow years beneath this bed. I think that means spent years in lust and sex, but this is the only thing he knows and that's what they have in common. So I've been in that situation too, where you think that the relationship is good. It's not. The only thing that is good is the sex. And that's the only thing that is good. Yeah. That's not a relationship, man. No. That is not. That is how, to me, when it comes to, say, the woman being the narcissist of the relationship, that is her knowing she holds the power of the pussy. Right. That is what that is. Yeah. She controls everything. And you can argue that a relationship should be 50-50. I've heard that it's not, that it's, some days it is 100-0. Like that's where the pickup comes in and all this stuff. So anyways, however you want to look at it, it still isn't with that situation. She knows she can do this so that you do this. And it's the only thing she's got to do, or it's the only thing he's got to do.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I think that line right there is maybe some of the starting of the realization of what is going on before the cycle continues to happen.
Yeah.
Where it's just swallow years beneath this bed. You could take that as lust still, and that but at the same, that's still not a good thing.
No, and I think that's the tough thing is that, I mean, everybody I think has had a taste of that in their life somehow, and like, it's the fact that it's like, oh yeah, sure, you can sleep with this person just fine. It's like, what's it like when you pay bills with them?
Yeah.
Have you ever gone to the store with them? Have you? I mean, I know like we're kind of like going off into a weird thing, but like it's the truth where it's like when that's all you have is physicality with somebody and there's zero emotional connection, where it's like, no wonder your relationship's fucking toxic. Like, I mean, it's like, it's no fucking wonder. I'm surprised it took you this long to find it out. Like, it's like that type of thing. Like, it's just, it's so difficult to be able to take in. And especially with this, like, I look at Jericho just being that moment of like the crux of it for me. I look at it where it's like he's barely holding on.
Right, because you were saying that in the fact that the walls of Jericho. Yeah.
Yeah. It's and I love that Vessel uses biblical terminology for certain things to make it relatable to something that could be worship or, worship-fied or whatever-fied, like however you want to say it. But like, but it's that thing of like, nah, man, like Jericho tried to keep the walls from coming down. And they did fall. And it's like, it's that constant struggle of that, like, having to close your ears and be like, everything's fine. And it's just, it's the worst place that you can be in besides rock bottom, where it's like, because he hasn't hit rock bottom yet. That's coming in Tomb, where like he literally, where he hits the absolute rock bottom. Because it's similar to like what Shia LaBeouf said, where he's like, rock bottom isn't, oh God, well, I can't remember the first part of it, but essentially he's like, rock bottom is when you change. It's not when your life falls apart, it's when you change, which that makes sense moving into Eden, that type of thing. But with this is that, dude, like, it was a hell of a way to end the second EP, because now it's like, all right, well, if we're going to move on to Sundowning, it's like, well, no, we got 2 singles to hit before we hit Sundowning. So it's like, where is he now? Like, once we get past these EPs, we've seen the enticement, we've seen the control, we've seen the way that he is a slave to her, all these different things, and where do we end up with The Way That You Were? And this is something that I thought was very, very interesting.
The going with The Way That You Were. So to before we do that, in the fact of there was the thing of you taste like new flesh, but before that, there's something the way you lie, and then you take your leave. I almost feel like those. I know that it's the first and last line, but it's the fact of you cheat when we fight.
Yeah,
and the fact that it's enough to make the dead switch graves, it kills me.
Yeah.
And the fact, so that's where you taste like new flesh. And it comes right after that.
And how ironic is it in the previous song, she said, don't lie to me.
Correct.
And but you lie all the time.
And then you taste like new flesh. Just say my name again. It's okay. Just say my name again and make me think it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's
pull the wool over my eyes.
Correct. And then like you said, we go with, okay. So this is the way choosing to end EPs and albums, like this is that fact of he almost knew it right there, but all you got to do is just do this thing and I'll come back.
Yeah.
I'll be here, all this stuff. So that's how I took it. And when you want to, bro, no, like it's just, and I mean this for any reason any of them see this, and I don't mean this as like being a bitch, but like seeing somebody be that weak kills me, dude, because I've been that weak.
Yeah.
I've been that weak. A 6'3" at the time, 225-pound man was brought to my knees on a daily basis from a 5'5" something nothing on a daily.
Yeah.
Bro. And it was all done up here.
Yeah.
It was all, and that's what I prided myself on the most was you didn't pull one on over me. Like you didn't.
Yeah.
No, that's just
Physical sometimes is something I would prefer to be done to me rather than mental.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because like I am quick, I am witty, I am on, and that's where I was like, nah, man, that's not. I can fix this.
Yeah.
I can fix this. I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, man. And that's what I said. Like it kills me to see a grown man or anybody like that in that situation, because it's like, you know how helpless this dude feels.
Yeah.
It's literally written down on paper.
I think that what bothers me the most is that it's when I get windows back into these things, you know, and to see what a human being goes through, like, you know, because I've talked about this a lot, but like, you know, my process when I would come home, you know, from work was, all right, cool, it's 5:00, and by 5:15 my first tall boy's done.
100% crack.
And, you know, it's in just, you know, like, you know,
tall boy, dude, that's 24 ounces, man.
Yeah, that's a lot of alcohol
in 15 minutes.
Yeah. But mind you, I was sleeping and I was doing everything that I was doing. I was a productive drunk, like, you know, but
you were a functioning, not alcohol, but a functioning alky, as they call that.
Well, because I think that basically what it would come down to is that like when the dust would settle and after I've had my drinks and after I would, you know, be playing Doom Eternal, which was the only thing that got me through that time, you know, like as far as like something I could like, you know, have my hands physically on when I was alone, like, you know, that type of thing, like. I remember thinking to myself many times the thought of like, I'm stuck. I can't get out. I'm going to be here forever. This is the rest of my life.
It is
I will die, and I will die unhappy. And
yeah, that's what I was thought too. Like this was just my life. I'm miserable. And then this is just how people lived.
Yeah.
That's just how it was. Mm-hmm. So same thing.
Well, the thing is that it's wild to be on the other side, just because it's one of those that like, nah, man, I'll never forget about how that guy felt. I'm not that guy anymore. I'm a very different person, but just because I'm not him doesn't mean I don't feel for him. You know, like it's that vessel is our way to be able to look at that. And, you know, it's even as he says it in Fall for Me on the time cards where he's like, let me be the living embodiment or the drama of your pain, you know, or like the exact wording, I can't remember, but it's like, it's the fact that he's like, no, like you need to know you're not alone. You need to know that of what it's like to be here. And it's that reminder, man. It's for me, like, that's really like what I'm happy to say now is that it's like, I'm thankful to not be there. I'm thankful, you know, to every single person that's stuck by my side. I'm thankful to my God. I'm thankful to, you know, just every single aspect of good that ever got me out of that situation for me to be able to finally breathe, because it felt like I couldn't for the longest time. And
right.
It's something that in reflecting is that very much that's where we end up with the next single, is that we both didn't really, I know for me, like I didn't take a lot of notes on The Way That You Were. But this is, in my opinion, and we kind of talked about this, was that this is Vessel just talking to himself. You know,
I had Jaws next.
No, Jaws is after The Way That You Were.
Okay, man, I must have put him down wrong. Okay.
But either way, I kind of looked at this as that The Way That You Were is essentially Do You Wish That You Loved Me Part 1.
So he's like talking to himself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and to me, I think that it's that thing of like, man, it's like, don't you remember? Like, it's like, you remember what life was like before you got into this? Like, it's like you're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to it's these private moments that we have with ourselves in the shower and on the shitter and in the car. It's like those are the three places that you can have the most rationality come to you, or an idea will hit you. And this one is very interesting because there's not like an insane amount of production. It's a pipe organ and his voice. And it's such a beautiful rendition, and it's something that I think, especially with the music video, it's very odd where he's reaching for a woman that's in front of him, you know, where it's almost kind of like the lyrics are saying, dude, you need to get out, but the physicality is, I can't stay away, but I can't even get to her. She's gone. You know, it's that tough thing of like sleep is just like, no, I'll show up when I want to. And it's so fucked up. But yeah. So this one's pretty much straightforward.
Yeah,
but I want to know what else you have on it as well.
Yeah, it was just the fact of talking to himself, and then the one line where he says, "And you will no longer stand between collapsing walls." He's not Jericho anymore.
Yeah.
Well, he thinks because I think he realizes like I'm not me anymore.
Mhm.
This is, I think, some of that, like you can realize something without realizing something.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was almost like with you where you're like, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
You knew all that shit prior. You realized that.
But the world didn't stop yet.
So it was just,
Yeah.
I think this might be the like already realizing, but finally thinking I am not who I was 5 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was, maybe the day we met, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way that you were, I agreed, I think is pretty straightforward. We didn't take, like I said, a whole lot of notes because it kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean that was very much a vibe. That was very much of just like, nah, man, let's sit here for a little bit. Let's think about this. Like, you know, and it's I love whenever we get those little Easter eggs of like, you know, you will no longer stand beneath collapsing walls. Where it's like, no, man, if you paid attention, you know, Jericho was before this. You know, it's
yeah.
I love that stuff. It's so like it's kind of like SLC Punk when Steve-O was talking to the camera and he's like, well, my friend so and so is like, you're gonna meet him later, you know. But it's like where it's like, how did the writers know that? Like, did they plan that for like scene 25? Like Titus even did that for one of his episodes for his show where he said that, where it was like him being like, yeah, he's like, and then there's the fight that we had, and then it cuts to him in the black and white, and he goes, episode 17, and then it cuts back where you're like, I need to see episode 17. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, so, but it's just, I love that kind of stuff because it's when creative people show off, like even amidst his pain, he is able to connect dots and make you like make you understand things, but also those that have been paying attention, you're rewarded. Like listening to Sleep Token is a lot like listening to, or it was a lot like playing a open world game that the more that you explore, the more you discover and the more you're rewarded. It's like, it's just, there's so much to find. And I guarantee you will still be finding stuff years from now.
For
you know?
sure. For sure.
But Jaws.
I was gonna say, do you want to go ahead and wrap it up with this one?
Yeah, I think that what we'll do is that we will go ahead and probably call this one the EPs and the singles, because I think that if we can tackle the 3 albums in one, you know, or maybe we'll do each album, who knows? Ya. But we have a lot to still go through. But I agree. I think that after this, we'll pretty much wrap it up on this front end of things, and we will continue our journey in talking about breaking down all their songs and everything as we have been doing. But Jaws,
yeah,
what's your thoughts?
So we both kind of had this little bit of a different, and it's not that I didn't agree with you, but I forget what you wrote. I actually didn't write anything down just because I knew I was going to remember. But starting off with "Stand Under the Stained Glass," and I know it's you. I will know it's you. You had a little bit of a different view on that, but I almost had this. I don't know if I mean stand under the stained glass because you're tainted, like because we're somewhere almost like, well, where do you see stained glass?
Yeah,
at a church,
right?
You know, or almost in the fact of you stand under the stained glass, like that's where you're always going to stand. So I can't see your imperfections because everything's all fucked up anyways. I don't know,
right?
There was something about that saying the stained glass felt like there was some significance to the word stained, because glass is supposed to be see-through. That's what it is.
I think that's a really good point.
It's because you can't, because I wrote down here, still trying to understand a narcissist.
Well, I think that it could be one or the other, or I think it could be both. Is that with the stained glass, like kind of like the whole NF thing where she in story where he says, I walked past the garbage, but when you watch it, it's her walking past the alcohol.
Yes.
You know, that type of thing. Like it could be like one of those little intricacies and things, but very much how I took that was that it was kind of like make it easy to find you. It's like
correct.
I'm on the corner
too.
I'm on the corner with the bread building or whatever. Like
makes sense.
But in the same hand is that we know that there are no mistakes in his lyrics. So stained is that it's kind of like, I don't know. It's to me like it could either be spot on and be like, no man, it's stained glass, or it's like, no man, it's glass of imperfection. You know, and of course you stand beneath it. You know, that's really deep. But it's just. This one is very interesting because the kind of the crux of what I got from it was let me distract you, and it's something.
Why do you think that though? Because I almost have the same view.
Well, it's one of those that when we get into and I believe we are locked, caged, and always provoked by prey left unattended, because it was that thing I think we talked about where it was that if her body count is high while she's with this guy, then it's like the idea of that other prey are approaching him, that she's, preyed on, but yet she swoops in to make sure it's like, oh no, this is so and so, they're fine. It's like nah, man. It's like, I'm just making sure you're gonna stay right where I want you.
Yeah,
let me distract you. Let me show you a cleavage. Let me show you this.
Yeah.
Like it's that that there's something that comes right out and says that, but it very much makes me feel that. But Jaws, I mean, when you think about this, like she's deadly. She's got some vicious teeth. So why would you want to even stand up to her?
But see, show me your pretty white jaws.
Yeah.
So, or show me those pretty white jaws. Excuse me. It's almost like this. He knows he's saying the word jaws as like talking about predator and prey, but in the fact of smile, so I know everything's okay.
Yeah. And show me where the delicate stops. Yeah.
So when you're smiling at me, that means everything's okay. But when you're smiling with a set of razor teeth,
well,
that doesn't. I don't want a shark to smile at me.
No, that is my fucking nightmare.
So like that's almost how I take that, in the fact of it's a double. There's a double like undertone here where the predator and prey, and she knows what she's doing too. But the fact of those pretty white jaws, there is a complete double, like positive double negative right there in a sense, or I don't know how you would even explain that.
Sure.
But like that's where I think that this is where that whole last verse is, that the fact of you're still trying to figure out the narcissist. You're smiling at me, but I don't know if I like the way you're smiling at me.
Well, I think it's like when somebody
there's still something wrong.
Well, it's like kind of like when you get into a car accident or something, or like you hit a deer when you're late for class, and what do? You just start laughing. It's like, where it's like that's kind of a justified thing, but yet when a narcissist laughs at you, that's when like number one, you're being laughed at by one of the most pathetic people on the planet, but in the second hand is that you're also being laughed at in a moment that is either that you're doing something that you genuinely have been needing and wanting to do and wanting to say, and it means nothing to them. It's like you've been building this up all weekend, thinking about this. Like when I come home on Monday, this is what I'm fucking saying.
Yeah,
and then they laugh it off and something, and the next thing you know, you're getting ice cream with them that night.
Correct.
Like it's like, dude, like I hate to say this, but it's like that thing where it's like a part of me was like, Vessel, like why the fuck are you so weak, dude?
That's right. That's why I said yeah.
Like you were saying, but in the same hand, it's like, nah, man. If I call him weak, I got to call myself weak.
Exactly. That's what I said. It breaks me to know. That's what I'm saying. Not calling him a bitch, but like saying like how weak he is.
It is so much easier to be able to be on the outside and say that. It's
right.
So much easier, and we're in a very privileged situation with that, And
it's weird because I feel like much like we did, but it's like Vessel has these, even though there's with the sleep and the this and that, and possibilities and mistresses and comas and things that could be possibilities. He is still in between all that, taken steps back and legit understood and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Guys, we'll get that's like episode 17, like Kyle said, but it's just that is the thing, and that's what it's almost so irritating, and that's why I get so, I think, emotional when I hear Sleep Token, is because it's almost that fact of, dude, you're crying for him, because it's like, how do you not see this?
Right.
You poor, pathetic loser. Like, and again, man, I'm not being, but like that, it's just like, I don't know how else to like say that, because you feel like you should see, you are an intelligent man.
And we are only within the first EPs and the singles.
Right.
And this is the journey that we have already taken.
Exactly. And it's just like, I think that's why I get so emotional too, is because I've been there, seen it, realized, and this poor man hasn't yet, and he's still pouring his heart out, being emotional and doing these things, but he's still there. It's like, dude, go, walk away.
You're almost, dude, you're right there. All you got to do is jump. And I promise that you'll be safe.
You have a parachute, man. Just, So
even if you didn't, Sharp Rocks would be a lot better than this. Like that.
It'll be quick.
See, and I think that this is what's so awesome about being able to dive into this incredible catalog of music, is that we could honestly probably do 17. That's a funny number. Now we're saying a bunch, but like, it's like we could do 17 podcast about this band alone, but it's one of those that we have been dying to do this, and we have been dying to be able to dive in the best that we can. And this is one of those situations where we have a lot to say, but it's also kind of all over the place. So if you guys have been watching this, thank you for watching this far. Thank you for just being on this journey with us. If you were on the journey with us whenever we did the actual reactions, if you haven't seen them, we highly suggest that not even just watch our reactions, but listen to Sleep Token, especially if you've been in a narcissistic relationship or if you're currently in one. Like it's something that I think everybody needs to experience once. Not everybody needs to be a fan, but it's much like working retail. It's like, no, everybody should listen to Sleep Token one time.
I think so.
And like to have that kind of mentality. But either way, this has been wild as hell just to jump into the first, portion of their music. And I think that moving forward is that what we're going to do is on the next podcast is that it'll either be, we'll hit Sundowning and, just do that one, or if we make it through all three of them, we'll do that in a podcast as well too. But regardless, we're going to do it. Yeah. We're going to make it happen. And
we're not trying to milk this to just milk it. Like we were on here for almost an hour and a half just doing that. So cause I was like, no, we'll get through it all. We did not.
Well, I honestly, I love that because it's one of those that number one, it's wonderful to be have you back in the actual room. We have had quite a month and quite a couple of months of just tech things and life and everything as well too. But it's just, man, it's good, man. Things are starting to work again. I'm knocking on wood, that type of deal. But
exactly.
It's great to have you back, man. And we'll keep doing Sleep Token stuff and other things as well. It's just good to have you, man. It was awesome to do this again, and I can't wait to do more. But as things progress and as we always do everything, is there anything that you want to tell the audience before we sign off until the next Sleep Token podcast?
I mean, not really, other than just like you said, thanks for hanging out on this one. We were probably all over the place, like you said, so hopefully you followed and that we are doing them justice as well. So like he said, if you're in a narcissistic relationship, please get out. You're in it. Yeah. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Yep. Adios, guys. Thanks.